Hi, all, and welcome back to another episode of There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani, and today we're just going to jump right into the episode. In 1998, 36-year-old Lisa Valdez was living in studio apartment number 307 in Diamond Heights Village, San Francisco, California. She was the daughter of Mother Helen Valdez, who doted on Lisa throughout her life, as she was her only girl. Lisa also had a brother, Tom. Mesa Robinson was her best friend starting in around 15, and she said that she would light up any room she went into. Lisa worked as a computer programmer with an IT company, and everyone she worked with said that she absolutely loved her job. Friends and family said she was ahead of her time, using email when it wasn't as large scale as it is now, but she would tell everyone she knew it was going to be the future. Now, let's get into her unfortunate case. On May 16th, 1998, Lisa and Helen had dinner together at Lisa's apartment. It ended like any other evening. Helen went home as Lisa was finishing cleaning up, and she had plans to get ready for a date with her boyfriend, Albert. But the next day, Helen called to check in and got no answer. The next few days, Helen still couldn't get a hold of Lisa, and she began getting pretty nervous. This was unlike Lisa. Then, on May 20th, Lisa's work called to Helen and reported that Lisa hadn't been to work, which was very much unlike her. This was the breaking point for Helen. After she hung up with Lisa's work, she immediately got into the car and drove over to Lisa's apartment to find it taped off by police. Around the same time Helen was told that Lisa hadn't been to work, Lisa's neighbors reported a foul odor coming from her apartment. So at 11:50 a.m., the apartment manager went up to her apartment, finding the door unlocked. He opened it to find Lisa lying next to the front door. He immediately shut it and called 911. Inspector Ronan Sholdes arrived to the scene and reported that it instantly smelled of death and decomposition. Inspector Sholdes found Lisa on the floor in front of her bed in an advanced state of decomposition, as her thermostat was set above 80 degrees. Her shirt was pulled up over her head, and sexual assault and stab wounds were identified. According to CaseMine, quote, an autopsy showed Lisa had 21 stab wounds to her face, jaw, chin, neck, and chest, as well as defensive injuries on her hands. 3 of the stab wounds penetrated major blood vessels, which caused a rapid loss of blood. Death would have occurred within seconds to minutes. However, due to the advanced decomposition, the medical examiner could not determine a time of death or whether a sexual assault occurred. End quote. Lisa's hair had been cut from behind her knees, which she treasured, to shoulder length, something that detectives believe the killer did in order to take a souvenir home. The reason the landlord reported that she was just in front of the door, while I just said the inspector stated she was in front of her bed, was due to the size of the apartment. Again, it was a studio, like I mentioned, meaning it had no actual bedroom. The size was fairly small, but friends say that she loved it for the view. When police started canvassing the neighborhood, they spoke with the neighbor directly below Lisa, and that neighbor reported that approximately 1:30 a.m. on Sunday morning, they heard a loud thumping noise coming from Lisa's apartment. Investigators started with the assumption that Lisa likely knew her attacker. The complex was a gated community, meaning there was limited access to her location. Lisa was also very security conscious, according to friends and family. So going back to the apartment, investigators noted an envelope taped to the inside of the front door with cash in it. Typically, every Monday, the housekeeper would enter the apartment, clean up, and take the cash. On Monday, at approximately 10 a.m., the housekeeper reported that she did open the door, saw someone standing naked, and heard the voice of a man. Believing she was interrupting them intimately, she simply shut the door and left. The housekeeper did recollect seeing her gym bag still in the apartment, as it was hanging off of one of the kitchen chairs, an item that was also not found during the investigation. In the bathroom, the toilet seat was left raised. The seat was dusted for fingerprints, and a set was found on the inside lid on the right side. Lisa's friends and family supplied their fingerprints to be used to rule them out. They did not match anyone that is close to her, leading investigators to believe that they belonged to the killer. Also in the apartment, found on the bed was blood not consistent with Lisa's on the pillowcases. It would be identified as an unknown male, but there was no DNA match at the time. Investigators move on to questioning those close to Lisa. In many cases, the significant other is the first suspect, leading them to Albert Cato. He reported the two were supposed to have a date on Sunday, but he actually called and canceled it, stating he was out until 3 a.m. with his friends. He went to the police station for questioning on May 22nd, with a large cut on his hand. But he immediately took a polygraph and it showed no signs of deception. Albert also willingly gave up his fingerprints and DNA to investigators, and on June 5th was conclusively ruled out as the suspect. Unsure where to go next, investigators decide to go back and listen to her voicemails. After listening to 19 calls, they hear one that piqued their interest. On the 19th, the caller asked if Lisa would be home that night, so again, matching up with Sunday, the night of her murder. The information and voice were identified as Albert Robinson, a coworker and friend of hers, as the caller. This Albert had no alibi to speak of, so as a result, he ended up taking 2 polygraphs. He failed both. Robinson reported that he would never hurt her, he just simply loved her. Mesa reported that the two were not a couple, just friends, and she thought he was pretty odd. A search warrant is served on his home, and there they find photos of Lisa all over the house. So maybe obsessed would have been a better word. Without protest, Albert Robinson gave up his fingerprints and DNA. Those unfortunately ended up not matching those of the crime scene either. And as a result of this, both Alberts are cleared. But the investigation lost its last lead. The case went cold. For over a decade, information sits and waits. Technology and DNA advancements continue, and San Francisco investigators lean into genealogy, or familiar searching. In 2010, Pam Hofsess, lieutenant with the San Francisco Police Department, went back to Lisa's case and requested genealogy testing be used. On September 2nd, 2011, the system that houses CODIS called Pam and reported that they weren't going to do the familiar search. Prior to beginning the genealogy search, they had run a regular CODIS search, and the result was a match. After a decade, the answer was there. Anthony Quinn Hughes matched every marker from the DNA sample found on Lisa's bed in 1998. Anthony had a substantial criminal record, but for things such as petty theft. Nothing that had warranted a DNA sample be obtained in the early years. However, the laws changed in 2004 in California, and anyone who was arrested after this point had a DNA sample taken. Anthony was arrested for shoplifting after the change, and so his DNA was obtained and put in the system, and that's how they got their match. The police also went back to the fingerprints, and his right middle finger was a 10-point match to those found on the toilet seat. Detectives want this to be the strongest case they can make. As a result, they try to get more evidence, so the only thing they can think of is to go back to the answering machine. There they found that Anthony left a message on her answering machine after he murdered her. He was the 22nd caller on her voicemail list. If you remember, I had said detectives stopped after Albert Robinson, number 19. If they had simply kept going, they would have found his information sooner. With that, detectives were ready to speak with Anthony. The catch was that Anthony was listed as transient in San Francisco. Detectives need to track him down, so a warrant went out for his information and was disseminated down to plainclothes officers. By a random stroke of luck, Within 2 hours, Anthony was seen jaywalking by 2 officers and immediately arrested. He was brought to Pam Hofsess, who began the interrogation. When Anthony is shown a photo of Lisa, he first denies knowing her, but then stated they dated in high school after meeting at a party. After the relationship didn't work, they fell out of touch. In the late 80s, Anthony reported that they bumped into each other. Lisa was in college at the time, and she actually brought him over to her dorm where the bed was messed up, and she went on to tell him that she slept with 6 guys, and Anthony stated he was disgusted by that. Detectives, not getting anything but denials, decide it's time to get into the evidence. After hearing everything, including the DNA and fingerprints, seeing the photographs, Anthony asked for a pen and pad of paper. He leaned in as if he was going to write what detectives believed to be a confession. But instead of writing, Anthony leaned back and attempted to stab himself in the neck and stomach, saying, quote, "I want to die," end quote, repeatedly. While the injuries were not life-threatening to interrogation and allow Anthony medical care. Anthony was booked on September 10th, 2011 for the murder of Lisa Valdez. Detective Hofsess decided to go see Helen in person to give her the news that they had finally arrested somebody for Lisa's murder. But they can never completely answer the question that everyone wanted to know. Why? Why would he murder her? Detectives theorize that Anthony saw her and she was friendly to him, but likely was upset when she either didn't want him or he realized that she was dating someone else. Again, she was supposed to go on a date that night. Out of anger, he attacked and raped her. Still, many question when Lisa would have allowed him into the apartment, and that's information that we'll never know. Mesa said she remembered Anthony from junior high school, but the relationship didn't work out, and they were amicable after. Tom stated he had never even heard the name Anthony before this. The trial began after 4 years of delays. In 2016, Anthony was found guilty of second-degree murder. At sentencing, he received 16 years to life. Anthony appealed, and in 2018, a 3-judge panel upheld his sentencing. He was eligible for parole beginning in 2024. And while I cannot confirm Anthony is out of prison, he is not incarcerated in the California Department of Corrections at this time, suggesting he was paroled sometime after 2024. And with that, this is the case of the murder of Lisa Valdez and the decades-long search to find justice. To all those out there listening, be careful. It's a dangerous world we live in.